many years ago, we had a lady in our church that had a urinary tract infection, and she was in the emergency room. Well, I don't know if you know much about that type of thing, but what I have learned from dealing with many people is that whenever you have that, it creates problems in your mind. You're not able to think straight. It just complicates your mind. And this lady, she was in a serious way. Ambulance had taken her to the emergency room. They called me, let me know, so I went to check on her. And I was babysitting one of my grandsons. He was younger, not quite a baby, maybe like a toddler age or whatever, at the age where I could pick him up and carry him around. But anyway, so I was in charge of him, so I took him with me to the emergency room. Whenever I got there, I asked the receptionist if I could go back and see this particular lady. I gave them the lady's name, and when I did, she gave me the most interesting look. And then she said, "Just a moment, please." And she got on the telephone and she called back there. And she had this conversation that I could not hear. And finally she said, "All right, you can go back." So I'm not exactly understanding what's going on, but whenever I get there, I find that where her room is, there's a guard standing by the door. Well, what had happened because of the infection that she had that had messed with her mentally, she had actually fought the people that were trying to help her, and she had been a very difficult patient. And they said, "We're not sure that this is going to be a good thing for you to go in there and see her." I said, "Well, I need to try." And so the guard let me into the room. And when I walked into the room carrying my grandson, she turned around and she looked at me, and then she turned back around and put her back to me so she couldn't look at me anymore. And I could tell that, she was not having a very good day. And then I called her name and I said, "I just wanted to let you know that my grandson has come to see you today." Well, I knew that she loved little children. And I was thinking that even in this state of mind that she was in, that might be able to break through the bitterness that was in her mind. And whenever I told her that my grandson had come to see her, she very slowly turned her head around. And whenever she saw him in my arms, this big smile came across her face. And then she was able to turn her whole body around and talk to me. And I was able to spend a few minutes with her in good conversation and have a word of prayer with her. And whenever I left, the guard told me, he said, "I cannot believe that she was able to talk to you that way after the time that she has given us." But the thing was, the sweetness of having that little grandson was able to take the bitterness and just kind of wash it all away. Well, my name is Richard Coleman, and I'm the pastor at Shepherd Church of the Nazarene in Lexington, South Carolina, and it's great to spend just a few moments with you today. I've been looking at the Israelites as they have come out of Egypt. They have now crossed the Red Sea, and now 3 days later, they're out in the desert, and they come upon an oasis. Well, they're happy to see the water, and they're all excited about that, and they go and drink the water, but the problem is the water is bitter, and they cannot drink it. Well, immediately they start complaining. They're saying, God led us into this place, and he's creating all these problems in our life. And they looked at Moses and they said, "And you're the one that led us here, and this is all of your fault, and now we're going to thirst to death." And they were just going on and on and on. Moses prayed to God and said, "God, is there any way that we can help these complaining people?" And God said, "You see that piece of wood over there?" He said, "Pick that piece of wood up and throw it into that oasis." Moses picked it up and he threw it into the oasis. And when he did that, the bitter water turned sweet, and the people were able to drink. I look at that story and I try to think how that applies to my life and how it would apply to your life. And I realize that there are times in our life when we have bitter moments. I mean, when things are just not going right. I mean, it's, when the battery's dead and all of a sudden you find yourself stranded, or when a bill comes and you open the checkbook and there's not enough money to pay the bill, when a good friend or a relative comes to you and tells you that they're upset and they don't ever want to talk to you again, when the doctor comes and gives you some negative news, all kinds of things that can happen in our life that can create bitterness. And we're just thinking, well, why is this? Why would God let this come into my life? And life just isn't fair. Well, that is a true statement. Life is not fair. God never promised that things would be fair, that it would be the same for you as it is for me. Life is not fair. It's life. And God wants us to go through life as the people that He has created us to be, with the gifts and the strengths and the weaknesses that He's given us. He wants us to go through life that way. And there's times when we just have to give it to God and say, God, I've done the very best I can. But so often during those bitter times, there are those pieces of wood that we could pick up and throw into the oasis. I mean, when Apostle Paul, when he was talking in one of his letters, he said how important it is that we need to clothe ourselves with things like compassion and generosity, and ultimately, he said, to clothe ourselves with love, to be able to deal with people that aren't very nice to us, to be nice to them anyway. Whenever we don't feel like getting up and doing something, just to get up and do it anyway. I think many times when there's bitterness in our life, negative times in our life, that there are pieces of sweet wood that takes an effort to pick it up and to throw it in, but we need to make that effort. And whenever we do our part, then God is able to do His part. I believe God wants us and expects us to have the type of attitude and the type of willingness to move forward, even in tough times, and be the example that He wants us to be. You see, Jesus said anybody can be nice whenever things are going well. Anybody can love someone when they love them back. But Jesus said that when people aren't nice to you and when they don't love you back, that's the difference it should be in a Christian's life. We should be able to help others, love others, and have a good attitude even when others are not returning that to us. So in your bitter moments, those tough times in life, when the water is bitter, just realize that all it takes is a little bit of effort on our part, and then God will do the rest. So may the Lord bless you and keep you. May His face shine upon you. May you truly be able to look forward to how God is going to sweeten the waters in your life. Thanks for taking the time and viewing today.